5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to Truth, Beer, and Podsequences, the podcast where we recap Cincinnati craft beer podcasts with our own version of the truth. We tend to put our own wild speculations and rumors on what they're saying in the podcast, and we really hope that the hosts of the podcast don't have too many consequences for us for these actions. I am Julia. My claim to fame is making parodies about songs about beer on Facebook, and I am joined by my favorite co-host of all time.
Hello, everyone. This is Marco. Julia, you're my favorite co-host of Truth, Beer, and Podsequences. I want to take a moment at the top of the show here to give a big shout-out and thank you to our gracious host, BC's Bottlage Montgomery. BC's Bottlage Montgomery, come on down. If you are thirsty, they have what you're looking for. Also, there's always a fresh scent provided by Cintas. So thank you, Cintas, for providing the fresh scents here at BC's Bottlage Montgomery. Julia?
Marco.
This is pretty exciting. You know how we had a beer sponsor the past two shows. We had a segment sponsored last show, and then we had a full show sponsored by Fretboard two episodes ago. Last episode, we had a segment sponsored by Sonder Brewing.
Yep.
Today, this is exciting.
This is very exciting.
Very exciting. And it's also going to be a little bit of a
technological challenge.
An experiment. We have a beer sponsor.
But not only a beer sponsor.
We have a guest. So we have a guest and a beer sponsor. So our beer sponsor, his name is John Lee. John, first-time guests, introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves. And by the way, my name is Marco. Julia does the Facebook poems and parodies. I'm a brewer, and John, tell us about yourself and what it is you do.
All right. Well, my name is John. I am a brewer, not at Cellar Dweller. I am an assistant brewer. I go to school. Well, I graduated. I graduated from Cincinnati State, so that's very exciting.
Nice.
I brought a brand new beer to BC's.
Ooh.
Awesome. So what is the beer?
It is a wet hop West Coast IPA.
Nice. And what is the name of said West Coast IPA?
It is called Hopscotch IPA.
I love it.
So, John, we're going to give you the next little bit here to open up that vessel that you brought with the beer in it. Go ahead and pour us some beer.
It's a beautiful stainless steel growler.
Don't forget ladies first, friend. And there are, since we are sponsored today, there's not a not sponsored by part of the podcast. Julia, what did you listen to last week?
I listened to all of the podcasts.
You too?
I did.
That's awesome.
I did. I am following in your footsteps and listening to all the things.
Awesome. So we are going to cut all the podcasts down. We're gonna narrow things down to our lane. Our lane is craft beer podcasts that are local to the Cincinnati area. I know that we need to do a little bit of house cleaning and catch up on a couple of Sonder stories. I believe episodes 72 and 73. Do you have that on your notes?
I do.
What else do you have on your notes, or what are we covering?
I have the Cincinnati Brewcast episode with probably one of the most annoying guests that the Gnome has ever had on it. They went to a very strange location to drink gateway beers. And I have, of course, Shift Beers. It is their 1-year podcast anniversary, and they drank some Oktoberfest beers, seeing as it's Oktoberfest season. And last but definitely not least, the Craft Parenting Podcast, where they had a couple of their friends on and talked about all of the local Oktoberfest in Cincinnati.
That is my list exactly.
Excellent.
So awesome. All right, so John took the past few moments and he opened up the vessel he brought here with a really interesting giant growler he's got there, and he poured us the Hopscotch Wet Hop IPA. Where was this from again?
Cellar Dweller, I believe.
And
never heard of them.
Did you play a part in making this beer?
I did.
Oh, then I've totally heard of them. They're my favorite.
Excellent. So you two go ahead and have a drink. I'd love to hear your thoughts about the beer. Not so much John's, because I'm sure it's going to be biased, but I do want to get Julia's thoughts.
The damn shock from these plastic cups kills me.
Got us again. Oh, my God.
How do I not have that happen? I don't know.
I don't know. Just when you put it to your lips. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give John the mic here. I'm going to let him talk for a minute about the process of making the beer, and then I want to get Julia your thoughts about the beer. Candid, please. Nothing less than candid always. Then I will give probably a commentary or two about it as well. So, John, go ahead and take it away here, buddy.
So I malted all the grain, or crushed all the grain, you should say, and that took roughly 200, maybe a little bit more pounds of grain. It's a long day.
Yeah. Now, did you have to wear special shoes and crush it with your feet like they do grapes for wine?
No. We use a machine called a mill.
Clever.
Yeah.
Clever.
And it crushes
Efficient.
it for you. Yeah, very. And so we throw this in a mash tun where all the grain is converted to sugar for fermentation with 160 degrees water. After we mash this beer, we sparge it, get all the sugars out, and we transfer it to the boil kettle. And that's where all the magic happens.
Nice.
That is where we get all the sugars, we boil off water, and we add hops. The best part of the beer.
Absolutely.
Yes. So with a wet hop beer, we add fresh hops. And they're going to be whole cone.
Okay.
So we used 8 pounds of whole cone, locally sourced hops, which is pretty awesome to say.
Is it a specific, is there a specific name to the hop that you guys used?
I believe we used Columbus and I want to say Nugget for some reason.
Okay. Wasn't that Marcus' nickname in high school?
I believe so. So we wet hop this beer and we transfer it into the fermenter, cool it down, we let it sit, and after a week or two, you get delicious tasting beer.
Awesome.
And a simple process. That's not so simple.
I was just going to say, this beer is very good. I really like it. A lot of West Coast are typically too bitter for me. My boyfriend absolutely loves West Coast because he loves that super, super bitter beer. So I'm always hesitant about West Coast, but this is just enough bitter to know it's on that side of the IPA scale, but with it being still very drinkable to me. So I love it.
Awesome. Thanks, Julia.
I'll need to find a way to get some of this home to Josh somehow at some point.
That out.
Cool.
Thank you, John, for being our beer sponsor
and our
today.
guest. Yeah, not just our sponsor, but our guest.
Yeah, and our guest. And I, as well, am pretty proud of the beer and also damn proud of the work that you do with us. Congratulations on graduating from the Brewing Sciences program at Cincinnati State. And we're glad to have you around as long as you're going to hang around. I think you have a very bright future in the industry that you've chosen. And so don't know how much longer we'll have you around, but we're going to enjoy and just, use you to the max until you're, moved on to, whatever you're going to do. And
he might take your job, Marco. Just saying. He could.
He could. I taught him everything I know.
Marco 2.0.
Taught him everything I know. So thanks again, John. Let's go into, you know what? I think would be fun. We've done spin the wheel. We've done dartboards. We've had kids run around in circles and smash baseball bats in the DC's cooler. Notice how those cooler doors, that cooler is still broken.
Yes.
From the baseball bat?
From the baseball bat, yeah. I kind of feel bad about that. It was really funny at the time, but I kind of feel bad that it's still broken.
I know, right? It's kind of like
Kenny.
as if somebody on Halloween went and never mind. I won't go there. It brings up certain memories. I think we should have our guests choose what show we talk about first.
I think that's an excellent. I think you should pick all the shows in the order that we talk about them.
Oh wow!
Yeah. The pressure is on.
Well, hurry up. Let's do. Let's
We're
do
on
one
a
that
timeline
we
here.
all
Yeah.
listen to. Let's do
Yeah.
Sonder stories.
Okay.
I listened to 73,
Okay.
but I didn't know we were covering
72. That's
so
fair.
I can let you guys do 72 first, and then I'll commentate on 73 as well.
Okay,
You're
so-
with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. And if there's anything that you hear as we're talking about episode 72 that you want to comment on, because as we know, we are an incredibly accurate recap podcast that never makes up anything. So feel free to contribute whenever you want to for this.
I don't know why we'd make up anything. That's strange.
You know, the lulz.
Let's see. Let's pull up show notes. Okay, show notes. Sonder Stories episode or chapter. Because it's story, right? So they have
Yes,
chapters.
they have chapters. Yeah.
So, and what do we have?
We just have episode numbers.
Okay.
I wasn't clever enough to come up
Episode
with
numbers.
seasons or stories or anything like that. So,
Well, chapter 72, it's football season, which means it's fantasy football season. To celebrate, Chad, Jeff, and Wayne joined the show to draft beer styles to see who can create the best team of beers. 25 beers were selected. Let us know who you think won, lost, and what styles were left off the board that should have been taken. Teams: Jeff, New England IPA, Pastry Stout, Pilsner, Milkshake IPA, and Brown Ale. Wayne, Pale Ale, Double West Coast IPA, Kolsch, Barley Wine, and Vienna Lager. Chad, American Lager, Fruited Sour, Hefeweizen, Imperial Stout, and Session IPA. And this just in, West Coast IPA, or Justin.
nice.
West Coast IPA, Barrel Aged Stout, Coffee Ale, Helles Lager, and Berliner Weiss.
Now,
Danny.
go
Danny,
ahead. Yes.
We'll
He
get
was my
into it.
winner.
We'll get into it in a little bit here. Danny had double New England IPA, Oktoberfest Marzen, American Sour, Coffee Stout, and Shandy. Now, as always, you can check out the Sonder Stories playlist on Spotify. Every episode, the team will list songs they're jamming to on Sonder Stories, and then they put that on their Spotify playlist. I have a revelation. My wife listens to the show.
What?
My wife listens to the show.
She listens to Sonder Stories? That is so awesome. The more people that we can drive to listen to these podcasts, the better.
Sure. Okay. So about Sonder Stories. Sonder Stories. Okay. So they today, did you see on Soch? Did you follow them on the social medias?
I do follow them on the socials.
On the socials. So they announced the winner.
Yeah, so they asked everyone to comment on their social media post of these fantasy beer style draft to say who everyone thought the winner and the loser or the least favorite was, because I hate saying that someone's a loser when it comes to beer. And today they announced their winners, which I don't have pulled up. So Marco, I'm going to default that to you.
Yeah, we're going to get that. So the people have spoken. Jeff takes home the win, and Wayne finishes last. We'll run it back next year. Okay, so let's talk again. Mm-hmm. I know I just listed all the styles, and that was kind of a lot to sit through, a lot of me talking. Jeff won with this lineup of beers: New England IPA, Pastry Stout, Pilsner, Milkshake IPA, and Brown Ale. Now, Wayne had Pale Ale, Double West Coast IPA, Kolsch, Barley Wine, and Vienna Lager.
Now, who did you have for your winner?
Well,
we
Julia,
won't say any losers, but who did you have for your winner?
I'm glad you asked, Julia.
Are you, though?
I voted for Wayne,
Okay.
the loser. Or the one who finished last.
So you won for who was going to be last place. So you're still a winner, right?
Okay,
That's how that
thanks.
works?
Thanks.
Yeah.
You're always so encouraging, Julia. So I was at Sonder the week of this podcast after it was released, and I saw Jeff Parker at the bar.
Yeah.
He came by, said hi, and I said, hey, man, I listened to the episode. He's like, oh, cool, I haven't listened to it yet. And I said, dude, I picked your list as my last list. The list, the one on the lowest out of all of them. He's like, really? And I said, I got to be honest. It has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with how the styles taste. I said it has completely to do with the fact that, 3 out of your 5 beers could or do have lactose in them by nature.
Which is a problem for Marco.
Yeah, I can't have lactose. I said, if your list had to be my list, I couldn't take your list. I couldn't drink your list. Other than, Pilsner and brown ale.
Yeah.
So I had Wayne's because I could have a pale ale, I could have a double West Coast IPA, I can have a Kolsch, I can have a barley wine, and a Vienna lager. Yeah. I'm safe.
Yeah.
I'm safe with all of them.
Now,
Love you, buddy.
I will
Love you,
say,
Jeff.
you know how we're big on pronunciation on this podcast?
And we're always on point.
On point, 100%. I will say that when you were reading all the different styles, you mispronounced one of them.
Go ahead.
Pasty stout.
Oh, yes,
it is
that's right.
Pasty, not
that's right.
pastry
It's pasty stout.
So we've got to up our game a little bit and make sure we don't make these kind of mistakes in the future.
Pasty stout.
Pasty stout, yes.
That's one of the in many of the episodes that we had the pleasure of listening to, and hopefully our listeners did as well. That was just one of the many funny things that were said over the course of the podcast, and hopefully we get to touch on a few of them so that when you go back and listen to the podcast, and boop, there it is. That's what I'm talking about. And we may get lucky, and Danny Harold, the one who created the pasty stout category, may actually come in today because he mentioned on Saunders Stories
that he
likes to come in and relax and read a book at BC's Bottle Lodge, Montgomery. So we'll see if that actually happens.
Yes, and we'll talk about that more when we cover episode 73 of this.
But which list was your favorite list?
My favorite was Danny's. I thought that it was one of the best
TikToks.
The good old Danny TikToks. I thought that it had the most styles that could cover any range of how you were feeling, like what you wanted to drink, something lighter, something heavier, any season. I don't know. I just felt that it was the most well-rounded and well-inclusive beer style list.
I want to ask your thoughts on, every draft has the Mr. Irrelevant, right? The last pick. Wasn't he last pick? And didn't he pick Shandy?
I mean, yeah. I'm just going to say, though, I was kind of upset.
Look who just walked in, Julia.
Speak of the devil. Danny TikTok Harold has entered the building.
That's it. He's here. Mr. Pasty Stout.
I am kind of upset that no one picked seltzers or Schwartz beers for any of their beer styles.
Really?
I mean, yeah. Not that I would have, but I was kind of hoping someone would have, taken one for their team, so to speak.
What else interesting? Did you have any notes on anything else in the main body of the episode other than they really got into it? Let me just tell you, they had a good time with this.
They really did. They did. And I thought that it was a really fun episode, too. I thought that, football season is finally here. Thank God. Bengals won their first game, and we had a fantasy beer-style draft.
Yeah, it was fun.
It's a great start to fall.
They would razz each other a little bit about the styles, which is fun, and they would give their reasons on why they would, pick a style versus, one other style, or they would get a little miffed if somebody picked a style off the board that they wanted.
Things did get a little bit heated when Justin didn't pick Kolsch as one of his styles.
Yeah.
I kind of thought there was going to be some table flipping and some throwdowns over that, but they seemed to pull it back in. They seemed to keep it well reined.
It was fun.
Yeah.
I thought it was fun. I think with a year to think about what they did and the execution of it, I think next year when this comes around again that it's going to be an even more fun episode than it was this year.
Yeah.
I don't doubt that the creative minds over there at Sonder are going to come up with something pretty creative to do next year.
Right. Yeah, kind of the only other thing that I had to say about the episode is everyone needs to listen to episode 72 because apparently if you visit the brewery, there is a scavenger hunt that you can do while you're in the brewery to look for a particular... And I'm not going to ruin it. Object, image, thing, person, place, people, object, what have you.
Right.
So check out the episode, find out what that is, And next time you're there, see if you can find them.
Yes, do that. That sounds great. They always end with, what are you listening to? Did you take any notes on what are you listening to?
Nope.
For 72?
All I have written down, which I believe may have been part of it, is that everybody went to the Hall & Oates concert except for you. So I believe someone picked a Hall & Oates song.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
you know
Marco.
We are friends. Sonder, you're listening to me. We are friends. I mean, what the F? Well, I mean, I would have gone. Just, I mean, you can hit me up on the, text, call me on my cell phone. You
Like
can reach
Drake.
out, DM me. I mean, whatever it is.
Slide into Marco's DMs and don't tell us what happens.
All right. Do we want to do episode 73?
Absolutely, because I want to know what John has to say about the marketing episode with Jen and Macy from Cellar Stories.
I want to know.
What love is?
I really almost did it.
We'll get you eventually.
I really almost did it. I want to know, after this episode, hit us up on all the soch and let us know what you think about what John thinks about the episode.
Yeah,
since he's a guest of ours, our beer sponsor. And John, is this your podcast debut on all forums?
Yes.
Awesome.
First podcast.
And he picked ours. My condolences.
Right. Yeah. How lucky are we?
We are very lucky. This is great.
Yeah, it is great. It is great. So Chapter 73 is marketing with Jen and Macy. So the marketing team is in full force on the latest show. Jen has become an exciting, reoccurring guest, and Macy gets introduced on the podcast for the first time. All things marketing come up, a couple of good marketing stories from the Sonder journey, and we get to know Macy. Find out what it's like to be in craft beer marketing, and then, of course, you can check out the Sonder Stories playlist on Spotify. John, you listen to the episode. Since you're a guest, why don't you start first about thoughts, and then we'll see what Julia has to say, and that way we can, since John and I are having to pass a mic back and forth, we can do a little bit of hopscotching or whatnot with the mic. Oh.
Okay. Episode 73. Going into the beer world, you don't think of marketing. Because I went for Brewing beer. So they had a different angle for the beer world to hear about this week. So they had a new person on the show, brand new. I think they said 3 or 4 month new employee on the show.
Yes.
So that was on one of my notes. And then I believe Danny said this. He said marketing is a mind game. What are your thoughts on that?
I would believe that because you hear all the time about how certain brands pick certain colors to evoke whatever they want their consumers to feel. Like McDonald's, red and yellow. Those are colors that are supposed to make you feel hungry. And so by having red and yellow on their sign, when you drive past, all of a sudden you want their fries or something to eat. So it is 100% a mind game.
I didn't know that about red and yellow.
Yeah.
That's pretty neat. That's interesting. That comes up halfway or maybe halfway or a little bit further into the podcast. It kind of starts with introducing... Go ahead, Julie.
What it starts with are brand new sound clips in the intro.
Correct.
I think Danny did a great job of what he picked, but I do have to say I miss hearing about the parking lot taco.
That was a fun
however
one.
Many episodes that was on, that was always a wonderful sound clip.
And that was a Jen thing too, right?
I think it was Jess. Jess
Green.
Green.
Jess.
Yeah.
Jess. Correct. And they talk about how Macy started and it fits right in. Really melded very well with the Sonder team, took on responsibility, didn't mind everything that was coming at her that kind of wasn't necessarily her, even though she was in marketing, it wasn't necessarily the same aspect or lane that she was in before. She also said that even though it had only been a couple of months, it seemed like she'd only been there a week.
Right.
So that's great to know that you get on somewhere and you're either so ingratiated in the business, but you're also having fun where it seems like time just flies by.
Right.
So that's pretty cool. And they really do dig into, every one of them has a bullet point or two about marketing and business in the show. Justin imparts wisdom. They all give their little nuggets.
Sure, like it takes a minimum of 2.5 impressions before something, or I'm sorry, 2.5 different interactions or different times that you see a specific brand or a thing for that to become a lasting impression. So they mentioned something new that kind of tying into seeing the brand multiple times. They touched on something brand new for Sonder that will help drive those up to 2.5 plus different interactions. And John, you said that you have seen this firsthand. What big news?
I was actually looking for it driving up here to BC Bottle Lodge, and I didn't know if I was going to see it. 'Cause I was expecting it to be off on the exit near the light.
Yeah.
But it was more towards the middle of the ramp.
It was the little dancing beer can on the side of the road, right?
Absolutely.
Nice.
And
that person in that mascot costume is going to get real tired real fast.
No, but it was a sign all by itself, and I was driving past, trying to keep my eyes on the road, of course, but it said Sonder.
Well, what kind of sign? Like, you saw the sign?
It was a traffic sign.
Nice. Like an official?
Official.
That's really cool. That is super cool.
And they were trying to get that for a while.
Yes.
And they finally met the requirements.
They talked a little bit about the whole process of getting an official Department of Transportation sign and everything that goes into it. There can only be a certain number of turns once you get off the highway before it can be there. So I feel like there might have been some bribery behind the scenes from Sonder and the Department of Transportation to make this happen the way it did, especially if you said they're the only ones on the sign.
I believe so. Could have been. I don't want to speculate, though. I'm wondering if for the Department of Transportation, the DOT, I bet you anything that Justin promised them a beer named after them. Maybe a Dotmunder lager?
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah. Dotmunder.
Yeah, that's right pronunciation.
The Ohio Dotmunder lager.
That's terrible.
No, this is a trust tree here at Truth Beer and Consequences. I mean, say it. Just go with it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, a beer name to get, to
get a highway sign.
To get a highway sign.
I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Speaking of beer names, there's going to be a new emoji beer coming out soon, too.
That's right.
They didn't say what emoji.
They did tease that.
They teased it a bit, yes.
Let's think of all the popular emojis, right? I mean, there's the... Eggplant. Crying face emoji. There's the... what else you got?
The middle finger emoji, which is one of my favorite to send people.
There's the poop emoji.
All of these would be great on a beer can.
Yeah, I mean, they'd be great on a beer can.
Yeah.
They already used the fire emoji.
They did. And the 100 emoji.
And the 100 emoji.
What's going to be the next big emoji beer? John, do you have any thoughts on what you think it might be? I mean, Mark
use
and I
the ghost emoji. I've been sending that to my kids to not to ghost them, but when my kids were younger, I would send them a text, and then I'd follow up with the smiling ghost emoji just to get them to laugh. Unfortunate is now I still do that, and they're practically all adults. I have two that are adults and one that's a junior in high school. So
close enough to being an adult to wear.
Yeah, so
the eye rolling is strong with that one.
Yes, the eye rolling is strong with them. Yeah, so the ghost emoji does not get the laughs it used to.
I have a wild speculation.
I want to hear it.
Wait a minute. Do we have any imaging or anything for wild speculation? Hold on a second. I'm just going to give a disclaimer. Our guest is about to give his own wild speculation. Okay? So this is not this is not the opinion of Truth Beer and Podsequences.
We are not
Although
responsible for anything that John says on our podcast.
Maybe we agree. Maybe we don't.
We probably will agree.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
All right, John. It's all yours, buddy.
I believe it's going to be a peach.
A peach.
A peach.
You know,
Well,
I can get behind that, but why do you say that?
well, there's this brewery in Canada
Mm-hmm.
called Canada.
Canada land.
Yeah. And they are Flying Monkey.
Okay.
Yes, they are. They brew this beer. It's called Juicy Ass. So,
You've
a juicy ass. Well, with the
Sonder
peach
definitely
emoji-
needs to compete with that. We
Yeah.
can't have that taking over our Cincinnati beer scene.
Absolutely not.
I like where you're going with this.
So with the peach, it just fits in perfectly with that name. Well,
It does.
They may not have to use that name because they may have it trademarked. But
Okay.
wild speculation could be something centered around that.
So what you're saying, so here is the truth of what's going on right now. We just heard from someone who has no relation to Sonder that Sonder has trademarked the peach emoji
For butt-losing purposes.
for butt-losing purposes. So what else about the episode struck you before we wrap up our Sonder segment?
I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah,
If you
yeah.
want to get into the nuts and bolts and business of marketing, it's not the deepest of dives into it, but it's a
Because
good
that's a very big hole that they could dive into
It
for
is.
sure. Yeah.
It was a good episode. It is a good episode still, presently, currently. If you've not listened to it, go and listen to it. Julia, anything else on that episode before I ask you if you have any notes on their final segment?
Sonder needs a mascot. I think they should have a glass of orange juice that dances around for you, betcha. That's my call for a mascot. I know William Goat is kind of the obvious, but they need something that's around year-round. So that, and we mentioned this a little earlier, Danny coming to tap rooms, bottle shops, and reading. He likes listening, like kind of like people watching, but he said that he likes listening to intelligent and smart people, which is a pretty good indicator that he will never listen to our podcast.
As far as the mascot, yes. Sonder, please contact Sonder at all of the social platforms and mediums to suggest a mascot.
Yes.
Danny is opening the floodgates. Justin, is heavily in the camp of finding a way to create a William Goat costume. But they are accepting all forms of suggestions to see what that mascot should be. John, did you have any thoughts there, buddy?
One more thought.
Yeah.
They mentioned it in this podcast. In Sonder, who would you have as a zombie teammate?
Oh, that's right. So if there were a zombie apocalypse,
Yeah.
and you had to have 3 members of the Sonder team as part of your survival squad to keep you alive if there was a zombie apocalypse, who would you pick? That was a lot of fun.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun to listen to.
That was fun. There was one unanimous pick.
Yes, there was.
Yeah, if we're
So-
suspending reality, why not just go ahead and continue to suspend reality?
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that harkens back to a few episodes ago where Danny was, everybody was picking their 10 taps that they could have forever, and only those 10 taps. And then at the very end of the episode, Danny wanted to have a magic tap.
Yeah,
like
he broke
said,
reality
hey, my
for
last
that.
one,
Yeah.
it's seasonal. It
Yeah.
just changes when I feel like it, changes whatever I
Although,
want.
no, I will have 2 of that one person, and then my third would be Jess Green, because we used to do obstacle course racing together back in the day, so I would pick her so we can boost each other's asses over walls.
She's cool.
She's awesome.
She's cool.
Congratulations to the family, by the way, for their new daughter.
Oh, congratulations.
So huge shout out to the Green family, and I'm glad everyone is happy and healthy, and can't wait to see more pictures.
Hey, John, so it's been established you're in the business. How many people from the Sonder team, just being in the business and being, doing what you do with school, how many people from the Sonder team have you met? And do you have a team from the zombie apocalypse if you were picking?
I think I do.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, this was a very popular choice. I'm going to go with Chase.
Okay, yeah.
He makes great beer.
Yeah.
We can find a 5-gallon carboy and we can pass time.
I like it.
And then for my second pick, I'm going to do someone that I know, that I went to school with, Helena.
Okay.
She's their lab person,
Nice. Okay.
technician. Just a good friend to have during a zombie apocalypse.
It is good to have friends during zombie apocalypses, yeah.
And then my last pick, I would go with Jeff. He said he would bring a guitar. So
And he would sing?
We have some type of music.
Yeah, but I think all he would ever play is Wonderwall.
I'm okay with that.
You're good? Okay. All right.
Because in a zombie apocalypse, there's no radio.
No, there's
Everyone's
not.
zombies. You don't
It's true.
have music.
It's true. Yeah.
So that's the only
You're right.
song he's going to play. I'm going to listen to it.
So speaking of songs, any comments on the last segment that they do? What are you listening to?
Someone had Salt and Pepper,
Yeah.
I believe.
Yep.
That's a go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Macy, the new employee.
Yep.
Who had the new Drake, the Drake song?
Wasn't that Justin and Danny? Like, didn't they both mention some of the new Drake stuff? Yeah.
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 I
like
some rap.
how Danny said that he only finds music on TikTok now. Like everything that he finds, he's like, I'm watching TikTok, and I'm like, what is the song?
Awesome recap, everyone.
Yeah.
That was great. Cool. All right. Should we take a break, collect ourselves, and come
And then
back?
we'll let John pick what our next podcast recap is.
Let's do that.
Let's do it.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us, even though it was a split second, and then
Your time.
a rejoin, and then here we are. We're still at the bustling BC's Montgomery. It's bustling. I love it. I hope you can hear that everyone's having a great time. If you're out there and you're jealous about having a great time, get on down to BC's Montgomery.
And we are still drinking delicious West Coast IPA from Cellar. Is this on tap now, or is this still to be released?
It is on tap.
Excellent.
Brand new.
So I would say head down to Cellar Dweller to get some, but you really have to go up to Cellar Dweller to get some, based on geography and all that fancy stuff.
So John is our beer sponsor and our guest today. What is the next show that we're going to be covering, sir?
It is going to be the Craft Parenting Podcast, Oktoberfest.
This was a fun episode. They sat down with two of their friends who, back in 2012, tried to go to every single Oktoberfest in Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, which there were a lot of them back then. There are even more of them now. They said that they were going to 2 Oktoberfests a week for almost 6 weeks to try to hit every single one of them. That's dedication right there.
Yeah, and in the show notes, there's some German. Julia, go ahead and read the German here at the beginning of the show notes.
Gesundheit.
That was amazing. Julia, you did an amazing job. So just real quick in the show notes, like you said, Oktoberfest season. So Joe and Caroline, the hosts of your craft parenting podcast, welcome their good friends Brian and Graham to talk about their brief history and the original festival in Munich, Germany, and the local festivals close to home. Joe and Caroline also recall their adventures from the previous week. Joe tells a dad joke about beer, and then they talk about the German word that means friendship or feeling of warmth.
Yes.
So I know you talked just real briefly about it. I just want all of our listeners to know the Craft Parenting Podcast. It's a podcast. They talk about craft beer and breweries in Cincinnati, but it's a parenting podcast.
It is.
So
it is.
No going into it. For those of you who like craft beer, love Cincinnati, and are parents of young children, this may be something that's right up your alley, right in your wheelhouse. Okay, I see this, and I don't want to speak for Julia. This is for me. I've listened to a few episodes, and some are heavier into craft beer and breweries than others. They are home brewers, as you touched on, which it has a special place in my heart, as I am a home brewer, and our guest, John, today is a home brewer as well. A couple of the episodes just are more heavy towards the parenting than they are towards the craft beer. So if you're going to be a regular listener, if you're in that demographic where you have young children and are going through similar stages of life and similar things, this could be a pretty enjoyable podcast for you.
Yeah. And no, I agree with you 100%, Marco. And just because of that, because since our podcast, Truth, Beer, and Consequences, is more beer-centric, is more beer-focused, there may be a couple episodes of the Craft Parenting Podcast that we don't touch on every week just because they may be more on the parenting side and all they mention beer-wise is what they're drinking. It's still a great show. It just might not fit into our particular wheelhouse every single week, so we don't want someone to think they recap this once or twice and then we didn't hear about it for a couple weeks. We just want to make sure that Truth, Beer, and Consequences stays on brand for us, and not every single episode does. But again, it is a fantastic podcast. If you are a parent, like Marco said, this might scratch that itch for you for the podcast that you want to listen to.
So they were talking about Oktoberfest, and you did
Lots of Oktoberfest.
You touched on they had some guests on the show. The guests on the show, the first guest, well, not first or second, but one of the guests has been Joe's friend since what?
Grade school. Yeah.
Kindergarten, grade
Which
school.
Which is typical of West Siders. Pretty much once you're friends with someone and you live on the West Side, you never get out of the West Side.
John,
ever.
You have any dealings in the West Side?
I have one person that I know on the West Side.
Just one?
Two, now that you know Julia, right?
Two. Yeah.
Now I have two. Sorry, guys.
You don't have to be sorry. It's fine.
It's okay. It's kind of a black hole over there, so don't feel bad about it.
So Brian and Graham,
Yes.
guests on the show.
Yes.
They're married.
Yep.
And they talk about the quest, right? The quest back. And they say maybe it was 10 years ago.
Yeah. Close to a decade ago.
Close to a decade ago. So it didn't start off. The quest didn't start off with them saying, "You know what we're gonna do? You know what we're gonna do." You're somewhere like, "You know what we're gonna do? You're gonna go to every Oktoberfest." No, they went to an Oktoberfest and then they went to another one and they said, "Oh, there's another one next week," and then like, "Oh, there's a couple more next week," and then a couple. So it just grew, right? It was very organic.
It's the same way with discovering craft beer. You find one craft brewery and you're like, "Oh, this is pretty good. Oh, there's another right down the street. Oh, there's another right over here and right over here. I need to go to the next one and the next one and the next one." So them discovering or trying to go to all of the Oktoberfests is the same as any of us saying, "I need to go to all of the Cincinnati breweries."
What was also cool about the episode, and I think worth a listen, even if, let's say, you're one of our regular listeners, like my mom and now my wife, who wants to hear information about Cincinnati or the Oktoberfest, what you could do, you could start up the show, take a little bit of a listen. They talk a little bit about Sam's Club. You might want to listen to that and maybe learn something. They
have a huge revelation about Sam's Club in that part of the episode.
It is big. It's big revelation.
It is very big.
Parenting tips about Sam's Club.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Listen to the episode. You could listen to that, or you could skip ahead to where they get into really what is the majority of the show, where they talk about Oktoberfest with their friends. And they actually talk about most of the Oktoberfest and the feeling and the vibe and what you get when you go to the Oktoberfest.
Right.
And, which ones they prefer for this reason or that reason. And it's pretty interesting. And that leads into sort of a domino effect of them talking about, is it Caroline and Joe?
Yeah.
Caroline and Joe, there's a domino effect where, so because they perform the traditional German dancing, which I think the term for that is traditional German dancing.
Yes, very official term.
And then...
good job, Marco.
Thank you. And then what happens is this also overlaps into where haunted houses start popping up.
Yes.
And so they recap one time when they were in their traditional German dancing outfits, and they went to a haunted house.
Yeah.
And then a rival traditional German dancing group showed up, and it was almost like a face-off where they had to do a traditional German dance-off.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, if for those of you old enough to remember Beat It, like where some showed up and like, you ain't bad, you think you're bad, you ain't nothing. And then so they went back and forth, and they were like, so it kind of starts out where, the leader of the group comes out and does their dancing and stuff, and then backs up, and then the other leader comes out and is like, this is what I got,
right.
What you got? And then there's like an ensemble dance, and like, what you got now? And then there's another ensemble dance, and then at the end, they both have a mutual respect for each other because of the level of dance that there was, and then somebody recognized them who is working security.
Yeah.
And they're like,
you won. Yeah, they're like, you won the dance off. So because of the dance off win, they got fast passes for the haunted house and got to get at the front of the line.
That's right.
Crazy.
What else do you have as far as notes on that?
They actually went into the history of Oktoberfest from back in Germany, Bavaria, kind of that region. And Oktoberfest used to be 100% in October. But then all of the drinkers in Germany, which is pretty much every single German, they got very impatient.
You in the back who doesn't drink, just stay home.
Yeah. So they got all the drinkers got very, very impatient and said, we are sick and tired of waiting until October for Oktoberfest. We want it now. And that's why Oktoberfest starts in September. Mind-blowing. Yeah.
You okay over there, John? You want me to show you to use that thing? John's trying to pour a beer over here, and I guess he's unfamiliar
and things are
with
happening. Yeah.
He's unfamiliar with his apparatus, which, by the way, apparatus and familiarity is going to come up in another podcast, maybe next week. But anyways, in the future.
But yeah, I mean, it was a great episode. It really dug deep into all that mostly the Donna Schwaben Oktoberfest. They are members of the Donna Schwaben Society, a Germania society here in Cincinnati. My grandparents and Joe's grandparents were actually both founders, so we're trying to figure out if anyone in their family if we know each other somehow by proxy.
That's pretty
so that'll
awesome.
be pretty fun to find out.
That is
I did want to say that the Donna Schwaben Oktoberfest, it is open to the public. I believe it's a $5 per person cover to get in just to help them pay for the event. They have 32 different German beers on tap, and then a keg or two or a tap that's dedicated to Bud Light because of an agreement that they had to have with their distributor. Tons of beer. If you're lucky, maybe they'll have Starry Nights, which is a shot of Goldschlager mixed with Jägermeister, or apple pies, which are apple pies baked into steins, which sounds dangerous, baking a stein, but Joe goes into it in great detail. So definitely check out the episode and see what you think.
Excellent review. John, we didn't hear too much from you during that segment. What were your thoughts?
Well, my boss didn't tell me the right episode to watch or listen to, so I listened to the wrong one.
Your boss sounds like...
I will be going and listening to it, though, because Oktoberfest is awesome.
Sounds
Your boss
good.
sounds like a straight ass. I just want to say...
All right. Well, John, it looks like we still have Cincy Brewcast and Shift Beers to cover. What do you want to touch on next?
Let's go Shift Beers.
Hell yeah.
Here we go.
Let's do it. So this is episode 49 of Shift Beers, which is their 1-year podcast anniversary. I'm just making up words now. And they were drinking Oktoberfest beers. And as always, it was an amazing episode, but they were missing someone this week, and it wasn't Brian.
It was Chris, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Chris
Although he
wasn't
did call in at one point during the show, so it wasn't a complete Chrisless show.
Well, we already know Chris is a person.
Yes,
And
yes.
I mean, he has things that come up. He's a busy guy.
Yeah,
He's responsible for a lot.
But Chris is like the rug that ties the room together.
It always fun episode. Absolutely. Did a lot of work to make those Brian buttons come off magically.
Mm-hmm.
And, shout out to them. Probably part of the reason Chris wasn't there is how much influence he had to make sure the podcast sounded seamless with all those Brian buttons.
Right.
And for those of you who aren't in on the joke, you can go back and listen to all of our previous episodes 1 through 6, and then the intro episode on Truth Beer Consequences, wherever you get your podcast. Please follow, rate, review, share, all of those things. We're on all the social medias. But we let you know that this character, Brian, from Shift Beers, is actually fictitious.
And we came to the conclusion that he is fictitious because every time I was up at March 1st, or the one time that I was on Shift Beers, and the one time Marco was on Shift Beers,
That's right.
he's never there.
He's not there.
He doesn't. So we came to the conclusion that he doesn't exist, that he is just a bunch of buttons on the soundboard.
It's like that cake song. Never there. You're never, ever, ever there. Okay, anyways, so do you have any notes? What were they drinking, Julia? They're Oktoberfest. Did you have any specific ones that they were drinking?
I didn't.
John, did you have notes on what they were drinking?
I have almost a full page of notes. On
Nice. See,
John, hit it up.
John's doing this
So
right.
I went to school with Brian.
With who?
Well, exactly. His name was on the list, but it was technically a hologram in class.
Was he ever in class? I'm using air quotes for those of you who aren't watching
was
the Platinum
in
Patreon
class.
level stream. Okay.
He passed. So, Shift Beers.
Yes.
It is a burping podcast now.
It was a burping bonanza.
It was.
Yes.
They didn't hit the record,
No.
but how many burps did you count?
So before I give the number, did you want to recap for the listeners what the burp count game is for people that this may be their first episode?
Okay, so Shift Beers is a podcast, and they just belch out burps whenever they feel like it,
Yeah.
or whenever they sip beer.
It's pretty impressive,
and so
actually.
now other podcasts count how many burps they have on the show.
Yes.
And now it's like a running game, kind of like this podcast with absolutely...
Did you just call our podcast a game?
No, not... The podcast, not a game.
Hey, Marco, I think your choice of
Absol-
guest, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Well
It's a
played,
game
sir,
on
well played.
counting the burps and counting the absolutely's.
So for the burp count game, what happens or what are you supposed to do every time they burp?
I take a sip of beer.
And how much liquid is a sip?
You're supposed to do 2 ounces.
Excellent.
But
He
I
does
always-
pay attention to our podcast.
See,
It's
I know
wonderful.
a thing or two.
Yeah.
So- but I take way more than that, let's be honest.
Hey, it's your game. When you're playing, it is your game. You do what you want to do. So for this episode, how many burps did you end up with?
48.
Ooh, that's a pretty good number. That's pretty solid for them. So at 2 ounces per sip per burp, I'll do some magical maths in my head. That boils down to drinking approximately 6 pints of beer during the episode. Not too shabby.
That's easy. That's
That's
a
easy.
Friday night, baby.
See, as you can tell from mine, I am a slow drinker, so I have to pause the episode, and it takes me like half a day to get through the whole thing.
At some point, I think I'm drinking faster than that podcast
Than
at
they're doing?
times.
Maybe it just sounds like that because the room is kind of spinning a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look like an overachiever. Way to go, John.
Well done.
Excellent. Do you have any other notes there? Other
He has
than
a whole
the-
page. Yeah, I'm peering over his shoulder at his notes. It looks like he did write down the Oktoberfest beers that they
Well,
drank.
he's very studious. I mean, and
He's very good. I like
he just
it.
Accomplished his goal, which is getting his his degree certificate. He's going to be one of these days infusing beer with, I don't know, THC or something at some point. And so
He's going to be making the best seltzers in Cincinnati.
oh my God, he John, go ahead and give our listeners, my mom and my wife, give our listeners your title at Cellar Dweller.
I am the Seltzer Project Manager.
Damn. Nice.
Big titles.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's all that's popular these days, so
So I
Yeah.
did write all the Oktoberfest, but they mentioned something else before they started drinking that.
Mhm.
Can you
That's
remember
true.
what that was?
we actually, the one thing that I have written down is, and we haven't had one of these in a very, very long time, but we actually got a Josh's Twisted Tea tip. So Josh's Twisted Tea tip, and it's a pretty good one.
I'm going to have to disagree with that.
Oh, really? Okay.
I have
Okay.
bad tip with stars on both sides.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and read the Twisted Tea tip, and we'll let the listeners decide. Let us know on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, wherever, if you think this is a good or a bad tip. Josh's Twisted Tea tip is, if you spill it or break it, just walk away, and it never happened.
Bad tip. Bad tip.
I mean, they even said that's an asshole thing to do.
Well, they go into a little bit of a scenario where Beth was out with her friend.
Yeah. We're not going to mention any names other than Beth because we're not throwing people under the bus. Yes.
Where they were in a situation or in an interaction where maybe that wouldn't have been the best advice.
Correct. Now, fun fact about the Twisted Tea tips, or not really a fun fact, but a true story about Twisted Tea tips, is earlier...
Wait a minute. Do you have a Twisted Tea true story?
I have a Twisted Tea true story.
Okay, we're all going to back up. We're going to let you go. Hold on.
Okay.
All right, everybody. Julia's Twisted Tea true story.
Earlier this week, my boyfriend Josh and I went down to Smale Park to the new Icon Music Center to see Coheed and Cambria and the Used perform. And while we were there, we ran into two people from Shift Beers, Chris and Brian. And Brian was double fisting Twisted Teas. So maybe they're not really Josh's Twisted Tea tips. Maybe they're Brian's, or Josh looks nothing like I thought he did.
Who the fook you talking about? I got Josh and who?
Button Brian.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But no, it was a great show, and it was great to talk to Chris and Brian. Haven't seen them in person in a while, and I'm sorry,
we haven't seen
Brian.
one of them ever in person. What are you talking about, Julia?
First time for everything. I give credit where credit is due. He is a fan of the show, so.
So are we putting to bed? Are we burying the Josh?
No, hell no.
Not Josh, but the Brian?
No. Hell no.
Even though you were at a concert with...
No, because I have, for one of the later segments of their show, I have a... what is it when you have the letters that stand for the words?
Acronym?
Acronym. I kept thinking anagram, and I'm like, that is 100% not correct.
What's an anagram?
A big fancy word. But yeah, so we finally got back to Josh's Twisted Tea tip, and he did say, or he and Beth, they were talking about how that should be a new Twitter account, Josh's Twisted Tea tips, and he was concerned that he would need one every single day. I disagree. I think that one a week, even one every other week, because you don't want too many tips. So Josh, yes, you need a new Twitter account for your Twisted Tea tips, but you only need to post maybe one a week or one every other week. We do not need one every single day. We don't want you to have to collapse into that kind of pressure. But back to the episode. So the Oktoberfest beers. John, you have them written down, so I want you to go over what they were drinking for the Oktoberfest episode.
The first one they mentioned in the episode was Erdinger.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe I've had this before.
Okay, so is Erdinger the German way to pronounce Eyinger?
And that was their shifty, I believe, as well. Okay.
Yes. Then they cracked open a crisp... Yeah, they cracked open. Yeah. A crispy 16 lots.
Mm-hmm.
Marzen, which...
Marzen.
Marzen or Marzen?
Yeah, you know.
Don't roast me, guys, please.
As our guest and our beer sponsor, absolutely not.
Find
you
him,
get a free
John
pass.
Lee, on Instagram.
My account's a private, so it's okay. But you can follow me on Cellar Brewing Company.
There you go.
But they mentioned something about 16 lots that I thought was interesting.
What's that?
Was it the Shift Beers crew or was it on the can? I can't remember. They said it was a Marzen / Festbier, which I thought was very intriguing.
It's not intriguing. They're wrong. Let me just tell you something. You can't be two things at once as far as the beer style. I mean,
but Marco,
maybe in other things you can. You're not a Festbier and a Marzen. Hold on a second. Hey, Del. Hey. Listen, you're not both things. You're one or the other, And if you want to lean more towards one, pick one. If you want to lean more towards the other, pick the other. If you can't decide, then you're not one. Okay? You're not both.
Can he be
you're
like
not one?
Like a Festbier beer? Boy, the look, the daggers that I am getting for trying to smash Märzen and Festbier together is astounding.
Yeah.
It is a good name. It is a good name. I mean, I'm on to something.
I just thought that was interesting in the beer world that they mashed it to. But
so what else did they do?
Marco is giving me death stares, so
and
it's not interesting anymore.
No, definitely not. No. So one of the other beers that they had was High Wire's Oktoberfest, which when they went over their list of the different beers and their favorites, Beth's favorite was the High Wire.
Why was that?
I don't have it written down, but I think it's because it was one of the drier Oktoberfests.
It had honey.
I'm so good.
Didn't it have honey added?
Yeah.
It had honey added, so there was a little more attenuation.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because honey
you don't associate
is
with
perceived as sweetness
Correct.
sometimes.
Correct.
Yes, however, not all of those sugars in the honey are fermentable.
Which you both know is
a residual sweetness.
Okay.
Honey's not 100% fermentable. But it was a gold winner in 2016, so they're doing something right.
I'd agree with that. I've had a couple High Wire beers. I haven't had their Oktoberfest, but High Wire makes some delicious liquid.
Any High Wire beers.
Really? You should. Next time you see a can of something in a style you enjoy, pick it up. It's good stuff.
I have stickers of High Wire.
But you've never drank a High Wire?
Never been or never had.
All right. So what else did they have in the Oktoberfest?
I think they saved the best for last, which was Wolf's Ridge. Oktoberfest Märzen.
I've had many a Wolf's Ridge beer. I have not had their Oktoberfest yet. Hopefully I will. During the pandemic, at the height of it, when Wolf's Ridge was delivering to Cincinnati, they would roll up in front of my house in the big branded Wolf's Ridge van and carry a case or two of beer to my door, and it was wonderful.
That's so weird that they just didn't decide to go right down the middle and call it Festbier Märzen. They actually picked a side. That's strange.
Hey.
That's real weird. They really, the Shift Beers crew, and of course everybody who has had Wolf Ridge's beers understand that they're just making some fantastic stuff. Yeah. And they know. They decide to pick a style and they just go with it. They really nail the style. They don't teeter-totter between styles, and they do great stuff.
Yeah, and the Wolf's Ridge was Josh's favorite of the.
I have something funny in my notes.
Yes, absolutely. We love funny.
This is a yes or no question. Have you ever peed the bed? Because this comes up in Shift Beers.
Yes, recently. Or, because when you're a kid,
when you're infant,
like,
you definitely, or you assume that you have because you don't remember.
Well, I guess the better question would be, have you ever peed the bed and then lied about it to your parents because you know you were too old to be doing said things?
Someone blamed it on the dog on the show.
Why would you blame something on a dog? A dog has no faults at all.
What about, you ever blame a fart on a dog?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
I mean, that's
absolutely.
Everybody's done that, right?
I blame them on the cat all the time. I mean,
I have one more thing.
Yes.
Top 3 breweries in Ohio. Go.
I was hoping you wouldn't actually ask that. That is one of the things that they went over on Shift Beers, and that's hard.
It's tough.
I mean,
really
I
tough.
haven't even been to all of the Cincinnati breweries, let alone everything that Ohio has to offer. But I think if I had to pick on the spot, which is what you're making me do right now.
I know, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to do that as a guest.
It's fine. No,
well,
don't be sorry.
You can answer right now if you want to, Marco.
So my top 3 Ohio breweries, Fatheads would have to be one of them. Although they did bring up a good point on the show. I don't know that I've ever had a dark beer from them, but all of the beers that I have had from them they're incredible. I've probably seen one of their darker beers. I just can't recall having one. So Fatheads would be one. Westside Brewing would be another one. That's kind of my hometown brewery. I'm 7 minutes from them, and every style they make is really, really well executed, I feel. And Wolf's Ridge, I would have to throw them into the mix as well.
I just want to say when we have these talks about your top whatever it is, this is your list. You can say whatever you want, and it's right for you. You're wrong, but it's right for you, and it's totally okay.
All right,
Nice. John, go ahead with your top breweries.
Okay, I said High Grain.
Ooh, good.
They
Yeah.
make
Yeah.
Butt-Lusion Bangers.
Butt-Lusion Bangers.
That's a great
That's
beer
a
name.
great phrase. That's a great beer name. That should be a new Cellar Dweller name.
Yeah, they make excellent beer over there.
Okay. Yeah, they do. They do.
I had time to think about this too. So I said Urban Artifact.
Ooh, yeah. Yeah.
Great sours.
Mm-hmm.
Can't beat it.
Yeah.
And I say Columbus.
Yeah, those
they have
are-
a really
those are good
IPA.
ones.
They have a good pale ale.
Yeah, those are good ones. I feel like when you try to pick something, or 3 out of an area as big as the entire state,
It's so
you kind of
hard.
forget about some of them, and you're like, oh God, yeah, there's that brewery and that brewery. But
Absolutely.
good list. Good list.
So hard.
Marco?
I think what I want to do is I want to stick up for smaller breweries here in this aspect. Fatheads, everybody knows about. The amount of awards they've won. I'm going to base my top 3 off of how proud I am of the Cincinnati craft beer scene.
Okay,
And
that's
give
fair.
love to small breweries and one that took home a big award.
That is fair.
I'm going to say Narrow Path, the Common Beer Company, and Fretboard Brewing.
That's a solid list. I have can't disagree at all. No.
And I, like I said, I'm sticking up for small breweries and calling out one of the top 10 breweries in the country.
In the continent.
And also somebody who sponsored us in the show. And so if you'd like to be in my list coming up soon, please follow, share, rate, review, contact us on social media, and get some beer over here to sponsor a segment or the entire show. And maybe you will crack my list. So shout out to those breweries. Shout out to all the breweries that we named. That's the beautiful
They're all
thing.
good, yeah.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. Your list is your list.
Was there anything else really? Well, Josh did go into how he drank a shit ton of long drinks, and he messaged them to say, it was like 1 a.m, and he messaged them. I mean, they're based out of Finland, I think.
I guess it would be okay for them for 1 a.m. taps.
Yeah, it's probably noon for them.
It
but
just seemed
but
weird.
he did pose a great question. When you drink multiple long drinks, does it become you're drinking multiple long drinks with the S at the end, or is it long drink as a collective? And they had the best. They actually responded, and they had the best response.
Should
But you're
we
gonna have
leave it?
to, you're gonna have to listen
You
to
have
the
to
episode.
listen to that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
Go listen.
Because it is a hell of an episode, and it is a hell of a long drink. It's a.
You know what?
What?
Does that wrap it up for Ship Beers? Or
I
what
had
else do you have?
my anagram. Why am I going to keep saying that? I don't know. So they all brought bonus beers. Acronym. You see, the English language is incredibly challenging for me today. They all brought bonus beers. Beth brought Pipeworks, which their baked and
Yes,
layered
she did.
Imperial Stout. Josh brought Jackie O's Dynamo Fuzz, which is a peach sour aged in wine barrels. And we also found out that Dynamo Fuzz is what Brian calls his butt cheeks. So when you lose stuff off of them, you might get a little extra, so be careful about that.
Yeah, you got that Dynamo Fuzz in there.
Yeah. And then this is where the acronym comes in. BAB, B-B-A-B-B. Brian brought a bonus beer, which never happens.
No, because
He
imaginary.
brought array of
Unless he's at a
semi-precious
concert.
stones. And, he brought something by Little Fish Brewing, array of semi-precious stones, which is a barrel-aged sour.
It's
So
also what I used to call my plums.
in high school,
Yep.
I don't want to know how they knew about your plums in high school, but I'm leaving that one alone.
Marco's fun facts.
Marco's.
You heard it first here, guys.
So, Brian, I'm so proud of you for bringing a bonus beer. But yeah, that wraps up what I had for my Shift Beers recap. How about you two?
That covers it for me
Cool.
and my plums. So
we need to know nothing more about your plums, Marco.
probably need to grab another beer. Thank you, John, for sponsoring us. I think we've depleted the sponsorship.
Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead and take a...
Well, but since you're the sponsor, go ahead and put your card up there.
And he's going to sponsor the rest of our beers for you.
Yeah. So the next show we're going to cover is Cincy Brewcast.
Yep.
With
the Gnarly Gnome and a
Gnome.
very special guest. So
Special guest, yeah.
Stick around with us, and we will be right back. All right, we are back once again. We have refilled glasses, and we are ready to cover the last podcast of this episode, Cincy Brewcast. But first, and I stepped over the two of you, what's in our glasses?
Hey, so John is a beer sponsor. You want to go over what's in the glass?
Yeah, we have 50 West Wiener
Schnitzel?
Wiener Schnitzel or Wiener.
It's a very odd named
Yes.
beer that has little to do with Oktoberfest.
Wiener Schnitzel.
So what does that have to do with sausages?
Yeah.
Sausages.
Sausages?
Sausages.
Sausages, yeah.
50
Sounds
West
about right.
Veinermobile.
All right. I don't
All
think
right.
you pronounced that right. I think that John had it
Probably did.
better, but
Yeah, that's fine.
yeah, looks delicious.
Damn, that's tasty beer. John, while you're drinking, take a sip and give us your thoughts.
Very delicious.
That was
Perfect for the
deep-
season.
Deep thoughts from John Lee.
Deep thoughts.
Hold on a second. Deep thoughts from John Lee.
All right. So
All right, Cincy Brewcast. Julia, I don't want to step over you. You were going to say...
I was going to say that before we talk about the Cincy Brewcast episode itself, in keeping with us trying to recap what the Gnome is doing as far as his Oktoberfest showdowns, he posted a video to Twitter and Instagram. I think the Twitter was just live, so once it ended, you couldn't see it, but it was on his Instagram stories, or maybe I have that backwards. Who knows? But this particular showdown was between Westside Brewing and 16 Lots. And the winner was Westside Brewing's Oktoberfest.
And what style of beer was that?
It's a Märzen.
Okay, so they actually picked a style.
They actually picked a style, yes.
Oh, okay,
yes.
very good.
They didn't,
Yeah, glad.
wiffle waffle in between stuff. I don't know.
That's good. Okay, all right, so we covered that. Do you want to go into the episode?
Yeah, they.
I didn't take notes. Did you take notes?
I definitely took notes. Why didn't you take notes, Mark?
Because I was there.
Oh! So my biggest question, they went to a non-brewery to talk about gateway beers. They went to Buffalo Wild Wings, which is often referred to as BW3s. What the hell is the third W? Buffalo, then Wild Wings. Where does the 3 come from? I've wondered this for years, and no one can answer that question.
You know,
for
our
me.
server didn't let us know.
Yeah?
So I don't know where that third W came from. I go with the flow as far as that's concerned. In
if
our
you know,
defense,
let us reach out to us on our social medias at Truth Beer Pod on all of your favorite social media platforms. Let us know what that third W is.
Yeah, what the F? So anyways, the Gnome and I actually talk about the fact that we were at another location prior to that.
True. You were very far away from where you ended up.
Yeah.
You scoured the entire city.
Entire city.
Looking for the perfect place for talking about
the entire city.
gateway beers. Yeah.
And so then we ended up at Buffalo Wild Wings about 3/4 of a mile from where we originated to try and find Newcastle. And I have since heard that several people have tried to find it, and they haven't. I'm not that sad about it, to be honest with you. From what I remember about the beer, I mean, I'm happy to have it when somebody does find it, because I know it's not the original recipe. It's a newer recipe, which hopefully means it's
a better recipe.
Yeah, it's a little more tasty, a little more crafty. I can remember it, and I go over this in the show. I can remember the body of the beer being a little bit thin. I use it for braising things to add a little bit of flavor, but the liquid itself imparted more moisture than it did flavor.
Yeah.
But anyway, so he says don't call it gateway beers or whatever, and so we went to Buffalo Wild Wings, and the craft beer choices were actually pretty good. So we had to do a little bit of digging, and then we came out with having a Guinness, a Killian's Irish Red, and then a Blue Moon. Blue Moon.
Pretty deep into the episode, you were talking about Keith Villa, who created Blue Moon. You know more about that guy than he knows about himself, it sounds like.
Not at all. He knows he's forgotten more about brewing than I know about brewing altogether. But I have, as a avid podcast listener, and I listen to all the podcasts, I have heard him being interviewed many times, and it's always very interesting and a joy. I respect the man for being so learned in the brewing sciences. He's a doctorate in brewing sciences and got his master's in brewing sciences in Belgium. So I respect the hell out of that. And somebody with that much knowledge opening up his own venture after being with Miller Coors from the time he was started in the brewing industry. Yeah. Opening up his own venture in Colorado. Hey, John, did you hear about this place in Colorado?
Yeah, it's just a little small brewery. I just went there on my 21st birthday. No. Blue Moon. I went to Blue Moon.
Oh, okay. So I heard that if you're at a place that serves Blue Moon with an orange slice, it is an unspoken rule that you have to have a seed spitting contest across the bar with the seeds from the orange slices. Is that accurate?
Marco did.
Yeah.
I usually just eat
sounds
the orange.
official to me. With the seeds?
Everything.
Rind?
Everything. No, not rind.
So not everything.
That weird.
So not everything. All right.
Not
Okay.
Okay.
But that's a hell of a 21st birthday
if
place
you have
to
an
go
overripe banana, do you eat the peel?
I've seen this trend. I think it's weird. No.
No. Why? No. Why?
I didn't say I. Hold on, Julie. I didn't say I did.
No. I'm just. Well, but you didn't.
No,
but you didn't say you didn't.
Oh, okay. All right. Hey, we're going to leave that up to. I'm not going to answer that.
Okay.
I plead the fifth.
All right. Is this kind of similar to you smooge bathing?
Oh,
which
no,
is
that
also
totally happened.
mentioned in the episode.
No, that totally happened. It's very good for your skin. So, it was a fun episode. I enjoyed doing it. I also want to let everyone know that I enjoyed the fact that it really tied into a conversation that several of the other craft beer podcasts that we listen to were kind of talking about in a way for the past few weeks. So I thought that was timely. I also want to say thank you to the Gnarly Gnome for reaching out. He had a hole in his schedule pop up unexpectedly. I always put myself out there if I'm available to say, hey, I'm happy to join you, because I always feel like when he and I get together that we have fun conversation, and some of it is good enough for other people to hear and they might think is interesting. So I hope that you do too. I'm not going to take too many crazy sideways or I'm not going to get too nuts on what the episode was, because I mean, I was there. Now
I did have a question for John about his opinion on something that was mentioned during the podcast, because I kind of know your opinions on most things, but you're our guest, John, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on this. Guinness is a 4.2% stout. Would that make it a session stout?
It's interesting because the origin of the stout was made thinner.
Okay.
America has made it something that it's not.
Okay,
it's
I was not aware
thick.
of that. Yeah.
I would say it's sessionable.
Sessionable. Okay.
I have multiple out of
so
time.
calling something a session stout is accurate, or could be accurate.
Sounds like a country group, big and thick.
Or sounds like your nickname in high school.
Did you know me?
I mean,
then?
I'm not saying that I didn't.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, so what else did you think about the episode, John? I mean, again, I don't think we should talk to Marco too much about this because he's incredibly biased about the whole experience.
I have something in my notes. I have a star next to it.
Yeah.
I thought this was super interesting. don't know who brought it up. I want to say it was Gnome.
Mhm.
What is craft? Well, I put what is craft, and then I put in parentheses owner. So does the owner dictate if you're a craft brewery?
I think to me it would, because if the owner of a particular brand is that national macro level, a lot of their practices are going to be part of that smaller brand that they're producing. So while it might be smaller batch than what they normally make, which some people might consider to be craft, something that's not produced on a millions of barrels and gallons scale, I mean, I really don't. I think that the owner or the parent entity of a brand does dictate if I personally consider it a craft beer or not, if that makes sense.
Because I'm going to say that Guinness is a craft beer.
Okay.
And here's why. It's not a yellow lager.
It is not.
It is not.
It is not.
And they use
Yeah.
complex ingredients, and they don't use CO2. It's something brand new to non-craft beer drinkers that is brand new
Yeah.
to the drinker.
That's true. But how you break that down definitely makes
It's
a
a
lot
fun
of
debate.
sense. It really is.
It's a fun
It really
debate,
is.
guys.
But yeah, that's a good argument for sure.
Yeah, and that's another one of those questions. It's an extremely, deep rabbit hole where you're finding out and deciding what it means to you, because there is the Brewers Association designation of what craft is, but decide that for yourself in the own way you want to decide it. Right?
Right.
Is it once you get to the point where you have an app on the brewer's phone that can start things on his way to work, and there's augers and automation and all these other things, or is it the truly small artisan places where they're milling grain by hand and whatever. I mean, but all of this is up to you in the interpretation of that. There is an official designation, but that doesn't mean that needs to be your designation.
Right.
And then keep in mind something that I've said on the Gnarly Gnomes podcast the last time or the time before when I was on. Look, if there's one thing that I take away from the pandemic, and there are many things that I take away from the pandemic, when we're talking about the brewing industry and the people that work in the brewing industry, everyone has a right to earn a living. And if Miller Coors is in this area, I don't need to necessarily call them craft, but
Right.
I can rally behind making sure that these people have jobs.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that.
It's your own interpretation, and I know we're running along here. We had a lot to cover, and we had a
did.
guest, so we had another person's voice on, and thank you,
Which
John.
was fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you,
Not
John.
just for the beer, but for all of your thoughts on all the episodes, for just providing just extra fun to this session.
I teased a segment with a Morgan Freeman impression.
You did.
I want to
Let's
give you.
do it.
I want to give you that segment.
Yes.
So I want to call this segment "A Moment to Pander," and it's going to be deep thoughts, and I'm going to do a very terrible Morgan Freeman impression. And the reason I don't call it a moment to ponder is because I am strictly pandering to Sam Adams and Boston Beer Company. Hello, this is Morgan Freeman. I want to give you an account of Marco and his son. Marco and his son, 2 years ago, went to Sam Adams Tap Room in Cincinnati, where Marco paid for an ounce of Utopias. His son was there, enjoyed the day, and Marco was pleased. And as they took the ride home, Marco turned to his son and asked, "Vincent, did you enjoy the day?" And he said, "It was the best day ever." So Sam Adams and Boston Beer
as you're about to release Utopias, please consider helping Marco recreate this beautiful moment with his son. And send 2 bottles of Utopias to Julia and Marco at Truth Beer and Podsequences. Catch us on all of your social media, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can catch us on Truth Beer and Podsequences at gmail.com. And thank you.